I was 62 when I stopped pretending I could outrun time. There wasn't a big event, no hospital stay, no dramatic breakdown. Just a morning like any other. I'd gone to tie my shoes and suddenly, I was sitting there, staring at them. Not because I forgot how, but because I didn't feel like bending down. That's how it starts. Little things that once came easy now ask for your full attention, and sometimes more energy than you have to give. It's a strange sort of quiet that enters your life after 60. Not silence, really more like space. More room to feel things, to hear what your own heart's been trying to say while you were too busy working, driving, parenting, proving. And in that space, truth has a way of showing up, soft at first but steady as breath. I remember at 61, I still tried to keep pace with the old version of myself. I said yes to every invitation. I kept my calendar full, my phone charged, my smile ready. But behind that smile was something hollow. Not sadness exactly, but a kind of weight. Like I was dragging the ghost of who I used to be. One afternoon, I drove an hour to see some old friends. I hadn't seen them in years, and I thought it'd be just like before. Laughter, stories, the usual easy rhythm. But it wasn't. They were all talking over each other. The TV was on too loud, and I found myself watching the clock instead of their faces. I left early, made up a reason, and cried in the car on the way home. Not because I didn't love them, but because I didn't recognize who I was in that space anymore. That was the beginning of the letting go. Letting go of the need to keep up. Letting go of the belief that showing up for everything meant I mattered. It's a quiet surrender, this stage of life. Not a defeat, but a return to something slower, deeper, to yourself. I began to notice how much energy I spent performing. Not in a grand way, just the little things. Acting like I wasn't tired when I was pretending to be interested in conversations that drained me, saying yes when everything in me whispered no. The kind of tired I started to feel wasn't fixed by sleep. It was the kind that lives in the soul, a kind that asks for stillness. So I stopped trying to be everywhere. I started being here, and here looked like mornings on the porch with my coffee, watching the sun find its way through the trees. It looked like turning down events I'd once said yes to out of obligation. It looked like relearning how to breathe without rushing, how to speak only when my words felt necessary. I wasn't lonely. I was just finally keeping company with myself. At 63, I realized how few people actually knew me, the real me. Not the man who shook hands at church or told jokes at dinner parties, but the one who cried during old hymns, who wrote poems he never shared, who still missed his mother when the air smelled like summer rain. When you stop performing, some people disappear. That's just how it goes. They weren't bad people, they just liked the version of you who kept dancing. And when you sit down, they move on to the next room. But the ones who stay, they see you. Not your mask, not your energy, not your availability. Just you. And they love you anyway. I used to think I had to earn that kind of love. Now I know, I just had to stop hiding. In my mid-60s, something else started to shift. I found myself craving quiet spaces. Not just literal ones, though I won't deny how good it feels to turn off the noise, but emotional spaces too. Conversations that didn't involve fixing or comparing or complaining. Just presence. There's a peace that comes with age if you let it. If you stop trying to hold on to what's leaving and make room for what wants to arrive. But that peace asks something of you, honesty. It asks you to look at the friendships that exhaust you. The gatherings that feel like work. The moments you smile through, even though your heart isn't in it. It asks you to admit when you'd rather stay home than drive across town. And not feel guilty for it. Some people will call you selfish. Let them. You'll know better. You'll know that your time is sacred now. That your energy is a currency not to be wasted. That you're not turning inward out of bitterness, but out of reverence for what remains. And here's the part they never told me about getting older. It's not just your body that slows down. Your spirit does too, but not in a bad way. It slows so it can notice, so it can taste life again. A bite of toast with honey, a familiar song on the radio, the sound of your granddaughter laughing from the other room. Things you once sped past without a second thought now stop you in your tracks. You'll find yourself staring out the window at dusk, not doing anything, just watching the light change. And that will feel like enough. More than enough. You begin to see that so much of what you thought was urgent never really was. I remember when I used to chase conversations. Used to pick up the phone just to make sure people hadn't forgotten me. Or maybe to make sure I hadn't forgotten how to feel needed. Funny, isn't it? How silence used to scare me. I thought if the phone didn't ring, I must be doing something wrong. But after a while, and it took longer than I'd like to admit, I stopped reaching for noise just to avoid my own thoughts. And you know what happened? The thoughts weren't as scary as I'd feared. Some of them even had something to teach me. I started remembering things I hadn't thought about in decades. Not the big moments, no weddings or graduations. No, the small ones. The kind that get buried beneath the weight of busyness. Like the way my daughter used to braid her doll's hair in the hallway when she thought no one was looking. Or how my wife hummed while folding laundry, as if the act itself deserved a melody. Those memories, they don't shout. They whisper, and you need quiet to hear them. That's something age gives you. The kind of quiet that allows forgotten sweetness to rise to the surface. But of course, not everything that rises is sweet. There were regrets too. Moments where I should have stayed instead of walking away. Times I raised my voice when I should have reached for their hand. I won't dress it up, I failed people. Sometimes without even realizing it. And age doesn't erase guilt. It just softens its edges. Gives you a chance to look it in the eye without flinching. There's an honesty that comes with years. Not because you're wiser, though I like to think I've learned a few things, but because you finally stop lying to yourself. I used to think being strong meant holding it all in. Now I know better. Strength is letting it out without shame. It's sitting with your sorrow without asking it to leave too quickly. It's admitting you're tired, not just physically, but in your bones, in your memories, in the places where your dreams used to live. And still choosing to get up the next day. Still choosing to love, even when your heart feels worn thin. I don't need crowds anymore. Never thought I'd say that. I used to love being surrounded by people. Noise made me feel alive. But now, I'd rather have one honest conversation than 100 empty greetings. I'd rather sit on a bench and watch birds land on the railing than talk about the weather with people who don't see me anymore. Because that's another truth. After a certain age, you start to feel invisible. Not always in a cruel way, it's just that the world moves faster than you do, and after a while, it forgets to look back. But here's what I've discovered in that invisibility. A freedom I never expected. When nobody's watching, you get to be whoever you really are. You laugh when something is funny, even if you're alone. You cry without explanation. You stop worrying about being impressive. You start living gently, not for applause, but for peace. There's something holy about that kind of living. I remember a day, I must have been 65, maybe 66. I was standing at the edge of the backyard, watching the leaves fall, one by one. No rush, no drama, just letting go. And I thought that's how I want to live now. Let go quietly, let go kindly, let go with grace. And maybe, just maybe, in letting go of who I was, I could make room for who I'm becoming. Because the truth is, we don't stop growing. Not really. The body slows, yes, but the soul, it stretches, it deepens. It learns how to forgive, how to listen, how to rest. I used to fill my schedule so I wouldn't feel the ache of stillness. But now, I welcome the stillness like an old friend. I let the quiet sit with me. We don't say much, but it stays. And in that staying, something inside me settles too. I don't fear solitude anymore, because solitude is where I finally met myself. And I've grown to like the man I found there, scars and all. If you're still here, leave me a comment. Let me know if something I've said touched a place you've been carrying in silence. I may be old, but I still read every word. And sometimes your words remind me that I'm not the only one walking this road. There's something no one quite prepares you for. The disappearing. Not all at once, no, that would almost be easier. But slowly, quietly, like the way stars fade from the sky before morning really comes. First, it's the people. Friends you saw every week start calling less. Then not at all. You tell yourself they're busy. And they are. Life gets full for them just as it empties for you. And sometimes they don't come back. I lost my best friend, Daniel, the year I turned 68. Not to death, that came later. No, I lost him to silence. A drifting apart so gentle it didn't feel like breaking. More like fog between two hills. One day I realized I didn't know the names of his grandkids. Didn't know what he did for his birthday. We just stopped reaching. It's easy to think those losses are your fault. To wonder if you didn't try hard enough, love loud enough, show up enough. But age teaches you not everything that fades is a failure. Some things just run their course. And that doesn't make them less beautiful. The ache of absence becomes a companion in this season. Not always painful, just familiar. Like the empty chair at the table you no longer expect to fill, but still glance toward out of habit. And yet, in all the letting go, there's something that arrives too. Clarity. I started to see the difference between those who simply passed through my life and those who helped shape it. And I began to cherish the latter with a kind of tenderness I didn't have when I was younger. Too caught up in doing and fixing and moving forward. Now I sit in the quiet and I remember, not just the faces, but the feeling they brought. The way Mary used to hold my hand across the couch, even when we weren't speaking. The way my brother used to say my name like it was a promise. The way my dog used to rest his head on my knee, as if to say, "You don't need to do anything. Just be here." The older I get, the more I understand that presence is the purest form of love. Not grand gestures, not constant check-ins, just presence. That's why I've stopped chasing people who make me feel like I'm asking for too much by simply existing. I don't have the strength anymore to beg to be seen, and I don't need to. There are a few, just a few, who see me without asking, and those few are enough. I think that's one of the hardest truths after 60. The circle gets smaller, but the love inside it gets deeper, like a pot of stew that's been simmering all day. Fewer ingredients, but richer flavor. There's a richness to life now that I never tasted in my younger years. Back then, I thought richness meant variety, excitement, constant novelty. Now it means depth, familiarity, the luxury of knowing what brings me peace and choosing it. I no longer feel guilty for saying no. No to loud dinners that leave me drained. No to conversations that revolve around complaint and comparison. No to people who take without giving back. Took me a long time to understand that peace is not something you stumble upon. It's something you protect. Fiercely, if you must. At 69, I started gardening again. Just a little pots on the back porch, a raised bed near the fence. My knees hated it, but my spirit didn't. Something about tending to life that asks nothing of me but patience. It reminded me of what I still had to give. I didn't need to be the man who once built a house or worked 10-hour days. I could be the man who sits in the sun and listens for birdsong, who cuts fresh mint for tea, who tells stories to a grandchild and forgets the punchline halfway through, and laughs anyway. And that, I found, is enough. More than enough. I used to be afraid of becoming less involved, less productive, less central to the world around me. But it turns out, less can actually mean more. More stillness, more presence, more truth. And in that space, the soul breathes differently. Some mornings, I wake up with a stiffness that doesn't belong to the weather. It belongs to me, to this old body that once carried lumber across rooftops, ran down gravel roads barefoot, stayed up late dancing in bare living rooms. Now, even climbing the stairs feels like a small act of courage. My hands ache sometimes for no reason. My balance isn't what it used to be. I've learned to keep one hand on the railing now, always. There was a time when these changes filled me with frustration. I'd mutter under my breath, try to push through, pretend like it was temporary. But it's not temporary. It's the new normal. And somewhere around my early 70s, I stopped fighting it. Not because I gave up, but because I began to understand that acceptance isn't weakness. It's wisdom. It's standing in front of the mirror and saying, "This is the body that's carried me this far. Let me be kind to it now." You don't realize how much you've demanded from yourself over the decades, until your body starts to whisper, "I need gentleness." And so I move slower now, not just in steps, but in decisions, in reactions, in how I speak. I think that's one of the hidden gifts of aging. You become deliberate. You stop rushing to fill every silence, fix every problem, win every argument. You let things be. You let people go. You let yourself rest. And rest. My goodness, I used to treat rest like a luxury I had to earn. Now I know it's a necessity. It's sacred. I don't apologize for lying down in the middle of the afternoon anymore. If my body asks for stillness, I give it. That's not laziness. That's listening. It's strange, though, how slowing down makes room for things I never noticed before. I watch the clouds more now. I mean, really watch them. How they shift, stretch, disappear. I listen to the birds. I pay attention to how tea tastes different when I drink it without distraction. I've learned that a simple bowl of soup, warm, well-made, can feel like a celebration if you let it. And here's something else I never expected to learn after 60. Sometimes peace comes not from doing more, but from doing less with more care. Even my grief has softened. I've lost people, too many to name, and I've carried those losses like stones in my pocket, always with me, even when I didn't touch them. But now I take them out sometimes. I look at them, I speak their names aloud, not with tears all the time, though some days, yes, still tears, but often with a smile, a nod to the life we shared. You realize, in this season, that love never really leaves. It just changes form. Sometimes it looks like memory, sometimes like longing, and sometimes like sitting in their old chair just to feel close again. I don't need a big legacy. I used to think I did. I thought I had to write a book, build something grand, leave behind a name that echoed. But now I think if I've made one person feel seen, really seen, if I've told the truth, if I've loved without condition, then I've lived well. That's enough for me. There's a quiet joy in simplicity, in waking up and knowing the day belongs to you, in not having to prove anything to anyone, not even yourself. Just breathing, eating, moving through the hours like there's something soft and sacred. Because they are. You begin to measure life differently after 60. Not in accomplishments, not in how busy you were, but in how deeply you noticed, how gently you touched the lives around you, how honest you were even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. Some people see growing old as a loss, a long goodbye to everything that made life rich. But I found richness here too, in the pauses, in the stillness, in the truth that rises up when the noise dies down. And I wouldn't trade it, not for the strongest legs or the sharpest memory, because what I have now is enough. Not long ago, a neighbor stopped by, just a quick visit. He said he had something for me. It was a jar of homemade fig preserves. Nothing fancy, just figs, sugar, and time. He said his wife made too much and thought I might like some. We stood there for a while on the porch, neither of us saying much, just two old men watching the wind move the trees. When he left, I sat there holding that jar, and I thought to myself, this is it, isn't it? The sweetness of being remembered, not in grand gestures, just in being thought of at all. The older I get, the more I understand that love often wears ordinary clothes. It shows up in quiet ways, in a hand on your shoulder, a voice on the phone, a jar of something made slowly with care. And that's the kind of connection I cherish now. I don't need constant contact to feel close to someone. I used to think love needed to be proven again and again, like it might vanish if you didn't feed it daily. But now I know the truest bonds don't ask for proof. They rest in trust. There are people I haven't seen in years, and yet, when I think of them, my heart softens. That's how I know the connection is still there. Distance hasn't broken it. Time hasn't stolen it. Some friendships, some loves, they live in the bones. That's one of the last truths I've come to understand after 60. Presence isn't about being physically near. It's about being fully there when it matters. I'd rather see you once a year and know you mean it, than see you every week and feel alone in your company. That shift, from quantity to quality, it changes everything. It filters your relationships like a sieve, leaving behind only what's real. And what's left is gold. I don't carry resentment anymore, not even toward those who've drifted away. I bless them silently, wish them well, and keep walking. That's another mercy of age, the ability to release without bitterness. To let people go, not because you stopped loving them, but because you've finally started loving yourself enough to stop chasing what doesn't return. And so here I am, 80 years behind me, fewer ahead. But what a strange and beautiful thing it is to feel full, even as the days grow shorter. I no longer fill my time, I inhabit it. I no longer chase meaning. I let it find me, in the rustle of leaves, the crack of a worn chair, the way afternoon light slips across the floor like a memory. I no longer fear being forgotten, because I remember myself now. That's enough. I don't know who needed to hear this today. Maybe you're younger, just beginning to notice how your world is changing. Or maybe you're like me, sitting with your coffee, looking out the window, and quietly nodding because the words feel familiar. Whoever you are, I'm glad you're here. And if you'd like to return, you know where to find me. This space doesn't go anywhere. Thank you for listening. If these quiet truths settled into your heart, take a moment. Share a thought, a memory, or even just a hello in the comments. We're building something here, slow, real, and lasting. And there's always room for one more voice at the table.